105.1 The Bull, your all-time country favorites. I'm Cruz, and I tell you what, I am super excited because I get to interview one of my favorites, Missouri native David Nail. Hey, David, it's been a minute. What have you been up to, man?
Not much, just living the dream another day.
Hey, that's what I say.
Working a little bit, probably more so parenting than anything. The sick bug is, I feel like, been going around our house one by one. It seems like we just kind of keep trading it around, and we all kind of have it guns right now. And I've kind of got a little mental anguish right now. I kind of more or less forced my son to go to school, and of course, right as we're walking in, he just sounded like he's a 75-year-old smoker with his cough. So keep waiting every time my phone vibrates. I keep waiting for the school to call and be like, hey, I don't know if you knew this, but your kid's really sick.
Boy, that sounds terrible. It's not the flu, is it?
No, it's just more of a gunk. I think, for us, like, we really haven't had, like, a bona fide winter yet, and so it will have these, it's kind of like it is now, like high 40s or whatever, and it doesn't really change, and then all of a sudden we'll get this really cold day, and it'll warm back up, and so everybody kind of starts getting the sniffles, and then you kind of feel like you're about to kick it, and then kind of has one of those little coats over again. So I've already been twice, I think, to the doctor, and I'm antibiotics out, so I can't take any more.
Trust me, here in Missouri, we can relate to that. It has not been kind and all over the place for the most part.
Yeah, I follow the weather, I guess, loosely from Missouri because where my parents live down southeast part of the state, a lot of times we get the same weather they do, and so sometimes I'll kind of see what they got going on just to foresee maybe what we have coming in the next few days. But, I even feel like, Kansas City and stuff, I know last year they had a terrible winter, and I feel like this year, even though they've had some snow, it's been nothing like, last year.
Well, you know how Missouri weather goes. I mean, it's literally snowing today and supposed to be 60 degrees this weekend.
It's kind of frustrating. I told my wife, I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but it's kind of hard to argue against the global warming thing because it's just not normal, I remember as a kid, and even when I first moved here, we have at least a couple snows, and, from December to the end of February, you were bummed up.
Now, I know you mentioned KC briefly, but what are your thoughts on the Chiefs being in the Super Bowl?
I definitely have been rooting for the Chiefs. I'm a little nervous about the game. I told my wife yesterday, I said, I haven't, because of this whole Kobe thing, I think I respect it, not been near as much coverage on a Super Bowl as there otherwise would be. And I feel like yesterday they kind of started to maybe phase into it a little bit. And for whatever reason, I told my wife, I leaned over, we were riding in the car, I said, man, I don't know what it is, and it's like, championship stuff just kind of has that. I feel like a Super Bowl, with the exception of the Patriots, I feel like there's always, even when the Patriots have been in, there's been some surprises, but I feel like there's always that random team that kind of comes out of nowhere. The 49ers were like a hot pick last year, and evidently it was a year early, and then now, they just whoop up on everybody, and the next thing you know, they're in the Super Bowl, and it feels like the team that they're kind of, their past feels like the team that is like destined to win it, as opposed to the Chiefs, who, were really close, probably could have easily won it last year, and then just it's so hard to kind of come back, especially with that disappointment. And so I'm rooting hard for them. It's funny, man. Like that Pat Mahomes, it's hard to not root for because it's just so daggone fun to watch, but and he seems like a really good kid. So my wife, it was funny, a couple of days ago, they were talking about quarterbacks, and Jimmy G was first, and she goes, I'm cheering for the 49ers. Hey, Jimmy G's a looker. Then they interviewed Pat Mahomes, and he was just so down-to-earth and humble and just real positive. She goes, golly, that guy's like the nicest guy in the world. How can I root against him? I said, yeah. They're both special talents, but I think if the Chiefs can jump out on them early, my worry is the Chiefs, if the Chiefs do what they did against Houston and even Tennessee to a degree, the 49ers have a defense so they can kind of sustain it, you know. So you give up a 10, 15-point lead to the 49ers, I mean, there's a different level of defense over there as opposed to maybe some of these other teams where they could really come back on. So hopefully the Chiefs come out guns a-blazing and aggressive and throwing it all over the place, and hopefully they come out on top.
Now, shifting gears here a little bit, David, you just released a new EP called Oh Mother. How did those recordings come to be?
You know, it's funny because about this time last year is when I kind of started writing for it, you know, not necessarily knowing what I was writing for. I just kind of started writing, and I was really trying for the first time in my life to write primarily by myself. I ended up, one of the songs that made that EP, Forgiveness, is a song I ended up co-writing with a guy that I actually wrote with for the first time that day. But I knew I wanted to put something out, you know, but at the same time I wasn't so hell-bent on, like, hey, I've got to put something out to put something out. I wanted it to be special, and I wanted everything I wanted to have some meaning to me. And, you know, I felt like that the previous EP I put out, They Are Now the Well Ravens, was a bit different than anything I'd ever done before. And I think that, you know, I think people, you know, it was a very positive reception, but I definitely think it threw some people for a loop. And so I think this Oh Mother EP was kind of what people expected me to do maybe prior to the Well Ravens thing. But this time it just felt right. You know, I didn't feel like I was doing it because I felt like people expected me to do it, or it sounds the way I was expecting for me to sound. And I just wanted everything to be, you know, to happen for the right reasons, or to the songs that kind of, and it was a classic case of where, like, the songs, you know, you get excited about something, and 2 months later you listen to kind of everything you've done, and songs like Oh Mother, Forgiveness, Lost Cienega, the cover we did, like they always just kind of kept coming to the top. Or if you kind of put them away for a couple months and then you listen to them again, you're like, golly, man, that just sounds special. So I'd say probably about mid-May, mid-June, I kind of settled on probably 4 or 5 and worked on those primarily until we got them done. And then it was a matter of, you know, getting them out and everything. And it was, but it's been really fun. You know, I mean, I'm not one of these people, you know, I've lived in Nashville 20 years, but I probably count on 2 hands the amount of times I've been stopped, or someone's stopped me to comment or recognize me or whatever. And I'd say probably, you know, within the last month and a half that this has been out, I'd say I probably, of the 10 times, 3 or 4 of them was probably in the last little bit, just people thanking me for putting something like that out or getting a message out. And that's always super rewarding. You know, I always tell us, I said, hey, you know, I hate what you're going through because I know what it feels like. I've been there, you know, and I continue to battle that battle. But I said, at the same time, you know, I wrote this for me, and the fact that you find some sort of comfort in it, that's just, you know, icing on the cake. You know, that's, you know, I've never been one of those that was able to write a song for any other purpose than just for my own, you know, well-being, or it kind of served as like my own medicine, so to speak. And so it's been really neat. I mean, just last week I had a girl in a store, and she just kind of came up, and I've seen the girl several times, and for whatever reason she said, and then, you know, I'm not supposed to say this probably, but like it's just been eating at me every time I see you in here. I just want you to know, like, I battle the same things you battle, and it's really neat. You know, I always tell people I'm just a regular Joe as anybody you'll ever meet. I still go to Target the same way everybody else goes to Target. It was really neat just to hear her say, you know, hey, I have the same issues you have. And I kind of chuckled, you know, and it wasn't a funny matter by any means, but I was like, well, I apologize. I'm sorry, you know, I'm apologizing if anybody have the same similarities as me. But, you know, I guess at the end of the day, you know, that's like I said, the icing on cake. You write these songs because you feel like you need them to get through whatever it is that you need to get through, and whether it be a relationship or depression or whatever it is, and then the gravy, I guess, on all of it is when somebody can come up to you and say, "Hey, I identify with it too."
Now, I know this is hard to believe, but your first album, I'm About to Come Alive, turned 10 last year. What are some of your memories from recording that album?
Holy smokes, man, I didn't know that. Although I was getting goosebumps as you were saying that, and I'm glad it was 10 and not 15. I kind of didn't know myself. I didn't know that. So I was literally on pins and needles waiting for that. It's funny. That was a record that was a long time in the making. Like, I made a record when I first came to town. It never saw the light of day. Hopefully it never does. Well, I really didn't know what I was doing, and that was kind of, I would say, a rebirth, because I never really had, much of a start to begin with. But, I wanted to make a record that kind of encompassed, who I felt like I was as an artist, that kind of introduced, me as a singer, me as an artist, and me as a songwriter. And, I feel like that's what it is. I think a lot of times you look at a lot of people's first records are their best records because they've had their entire life to make it, and then all of a sudden when they go to make the next one, they're on a rush, there's a schedule, you got to have it in by so-and-so, and, you're kind of living off the first record. And I never felt that way. I felt like that, it was a good first record, and that but there was, I learned from it, and that there was room to grow, and I took, kind of what we did and how we did that record into the next record, and continued that process. And I heard an interview the other day with Billy Joe where they asked him, what was his favorite decade, and he said, "For this one." And everybody chuckled and laughed, and I said, but I understood what he was saying is, I don't think you ever, as a creative person, whether you're a painter or whether you build houses or whatever, I don't think you ever want to just be content that, hey, this is the best that I'll ever do, or this is the best. I can't get any better than this. And not to be Debbie Downer and get back on the Kobe thing, but I think that's my favorite thing out of all the coverage that's come of this is they keep referencing that mama mentality of just, hey, I want to always strive to be better, and I never want to get complacent. And that's, 40 years old, I've, had 4 major records released, 2 or 3 EPs, and I just bought Amp the other day, and have been really, for some strange reason, become infatuated with becoming a much better guitar player. And I told my wife, I said, I learned how to play guitar in the 7th grade, and I never got any better. I might have learned a few chords now and then, but for the most part, I played the way, up until maybe the last few months, I played the way I did in 7th grade. And I really, it's confusing. I ask my wife all the time, I have no clue where this comes from. I don't know if it's like a midlife crisis or suddenly I want to be Eddie Van Halen. But, I think that there are moments in your life, and really, especially with Kobe, having a tragic death, it's really, really caused me to kind of look at, where I'm at, what I want to do, how I can be better at it, and not settling, for, I can remember 2 days ago, I found myself just listening to some songs that I'd worked on, and it was almost like, my first reaction was, man, they stink. Because I was suddenly, had this another level of standard in my mind that I created that suddenly these songs weren't up to. And, with a few hours, I kind of came to like them again. But I think that's good. I think it's healthy to not be content, because especially when you're, and from my standpoint, working to primarily alone, doing most of the things by yourself, or the production and everything, I think you have the tendency to say, okay, well, this is, this is finished, this is great, this is whatever. And I think it's healthy to kind of maybe consistently question yourself, and maybe right up until like whatever deadline you have in your head, maybe it's good to just constantly critique it and try to make it as good as possible. And obviously you can't do that forever because you have to release it eventually. But I definitely think that it's made me want to go back and look at stuff that maybe I started that I thought was great, and maybe suddenly now I realize that wasn't that great. And then maybe there are other things that I kind of thought didn't really have much potential, but suddenly, be it what something that has happened in the world or something that has happened in my life, that suddenly something kind of appeals to me maybe more so than it did before. And I just really, my goal this year, I'd really, in a perfect world, like to put out 4 different EPs. Certainly my minimum goal is 2, and I've already got this next one kind of mapped out and everything, so that one won't be the issue. The next one and the next one after that will be the ones where, hopefully what I'm doing now and writing now and working on now will be, the songs that become those EPs. And it's just been really fun, for somebody who's got really extreme ADD, I can come up with, I never have, I can write a few songs and kind of map out a certain project and then kind of move on to the next one without feeling like, oh, well, my album's going to sound all over the place, because I can kind of scratch this particular itch with this and so on. So, and I think that's a lot of where the music business is going, is singles and EPs. That's, I feel like with technology today, it's the people that sit and listen to an entire record are a lot more rare than they have ever been. And not to say that is dying by any means, but I just think people, they're eager for what's new, what's exciting, and there's something, that I find extremely fun about kind of the challenge of always consistently coming out with something new.
It seems every artist has a few songs they didn't record and regret. Do you have a couple?
I haven't. There's been a couple that I thought that I'd heard before that I've had to call and double check. Really, the only song that I've ever had any sort of kind of some controversy, I guess, so to speak, would be Turn Home. Kenny Chesney wrote that with a guy named Scooter Caruso, and he passed on it for several records. And then as Red Light was kind of slowing down, and there were rumors, that could have been it for me, he suddenly kind of got this interest in recording it again. And, obviously there's nothing I can do about it. Kenny Chesney can do what the hell he wants, but I remember just passionately fighting for the opportunity to record that song because it meant so much to me. I mean, it was a song that really that entire About Them Alive record was built around. It was a song that got me my record deal. It ended up being nominated for a Grammy. So obviously I had my feelings, my good feelings were, worthy. But I can remember my the co-writer, Scooter Caruso, come to my house, and us both just sitting there crying in the living room because we didn't know, what was going to happen. It really, if Kenny really wanted to, he could have recorded it, put it out way faster than I could have, even though I had already recorded it. But that was really the only song, I guess, kind of issue I've ever had. There was an artist that was trying to cut Nights on Fire before us, but he wasn't going to be in the studio for a really long time, and so we ended up kind of getting it as a result of just being in the studio at the right time. But those are really the only two. I've been lucky, or maybe, I guess I've been lucky that I haven't had too many, but also, you wonder the songs that maybe somebody decided not to play for you, or that you never even had the opportunity to hear, that maybe someone initially had expected to play something for you. So those are the ones that I always hear. It's when you hear a song and you're like, and it doesn't happen a lot because obviously this would be a very, very conceited thought of, hey, man, that song was made for me. I could sing the hell out of that. I could sing that better than them. But every once in a while, you'll hear songs like, yeah, man, that would have been a perfect David Nell song right there. And those are, I think, just as hard as, passing on something as, golly, man, I didn't have the opportunity to cut watching airplanes, but I was next in line. Had Gary Allan not recorded that the week he did, I was going to record the next week. And so the whole time that song was climbing the charts, that was a really bitter pill to swallow because I had learned it. I knew the song. I knew what key we were going to do in it. In a lot of ways, it had kind of become my song. And then lo and behold, he records it, and it becomes a huge hit. And I had to listen to, every other song for about a year and a half.
All I'm saying is if you added that to your set list, I wouldn't be mad about it at all. Now, you've got a concert coming up at Buffalo Run Casino February 7th. I've seen you a bunch of times live in concert. It is amazing. But maybe for our Bull Nation that's seeing you for the first time, what can they expect?
You know what's funny is the last few days, really what I've kind of spent my time doing is just kind of going through every song we've ever played and looking at old records and thinking and, trying to think, is there anything there that, A, I want to play, B, that we could play, and then just kind of listening to covers and going back through songs that I've written that I've never made records, and we, for whatever reason, haven't had really any time to rehearse. And, got guys with their first babies being born, or they're about to be born, or they're traveling, going on vacation and stuff. So it's been really hard to have like a rehearsal, so to speak. But actually, before that show, we have 2 days. And so I've really been working on trying to figure out a way to not only make our show better, but add some songs that maybe we've never played, or re-add some songs that we haven't played in a long time. So I'm really excited about just learning some new stuff, and then I'm going to be, and that's another good thing about the whole consistent EP process is that you kind of have that ability to kind of pre-production these songs with a band on the road, and try them out. So there's people that here the next several months will hear songs, and they may be the one and only people that ever hear it. If for whatever reason it doesn't go over or doesn't feel great or whatever, it may be never recorded again, or played again. So that's the fun part, is kind of being able to try things out on people and play them a couple, 2 or 3 nights and see, how they feel, and if it's something you feel like you do. And there's been songs that I would have for sure thought we would record and make a record. You play 3 or 4 times on the road, and you're like, I just don't think this is me, or I just don't think I can pull this off. So for those, I guess, in essence, that is a really, really long answer. In essence, saying, hey, if you've seen us before, I really feel like this year, whether if it's simply just a set list or whatever, I think there'll be a big change in the show and just kind of how it flows and everything.
All right, David, I have a couple fan questions for you. Pat Hamilton wants to know, what was the worst trouble you got into in high school?
Oh man, high school, man, that's hard. I didn't really get in trouble. In my senior year, I crowned the homecoming queen, and I kissed her maybe a little bit more affectionately than her boyfriend, who was in the crowd, cared for her. There were some issues there that arose as a result of that. That there wasn't so much trouble as more or less like, hey, if this escalates any further, you could get into some serious trouble. But, just the typical chasing girl stuff, or trying to, I did about as little as, I did the least that you needed to do to get through high school education-wise, and I was focused on girls and sports and music, and really didn't have a whole lot of extra time to get in trouble.
Tyler Weeks was curious, what has been one of the most challenging things that you have had to overcome being in the music business?
Oh, wow, man. I've never had that question before. That's a good one. When I first got a record deal when I was 20 years old, and it happened like really quick and real spur of the moment. And I'd say within 6-7 months, I was in a studio making this record that I really didn't know what I was doing. And probably a year and a half later, I was out on the road and flying all over the country, eating at super nice restaurants, staying at really, really nice, expensive hotels. And while it was not intentional, I wasn't like just, walking around like, hey, man, I'm king, of what mountain. I was just naive, and I thought, oh, man, this is the easy part. Or this is the hard part was getting the record deal. Now it's just smooth sailing. And so I think I got lazy, but not like your typical lazy of just, I'm just going to let everybody do the work. I just, in essence, felt like everything else kind of would take care of itself. And so I developed a little bit of a reputation, and I'm not going to say I, did nothing wrong or I, never had any issues that were legit with people, but there was definitely a reputation of here's somebody who got it real easy, didn't appreciate it, doesn't work hard to deal with. And, looking back, I think the result of a lot of that was, later kind of, I guess I had a little bit of redemption when, I kind of started to figure out my mental health issues and going through all that. I think a lot of those people, I know a lot of those people because I ended up going back to the same record label, so I've had tons of conversations with people back then. But, I think a lot of those people were like, you know what, I think maybe it was a more so this than him just being, a what. So definitely I'd say just kind of maybe a little bit of a bad, skeptical reputation that I had to kind of smooth things over with maybe a fairly important group of people.
Well, it looks like you're gearing up for a good year. What can we expect from David Nail in 2020?
Well, we're going to work a little bit more than we did last year, which was more than we worked the year before. I don't know that I ever want to work like I did for about a 3 or 4 year stretch there, but especially, with 2 small kids at home. But last year I had about as much fun playing on the road, and we really didn't have a bad show and played a lot of places for the first time. And so, I kind of got a little excited and told the folks that I wanted to get out there a little bit more. And I think my primary focus is just trying to put out as much good music as I can and, try to stay in the, I guess, conversation as much as I can. But my philosophy's always been, let's have a good enough year to have a next year. And so it all kind of boils down to that. I hope we work enough. I hope we have enough success, or I hope we put enough a good enough music that there are people that want us to come back and play for them next year. So that's really what we'll do this year is we'll put our best foot forward and work our hardest to try to hope that there's at least a little demand for some David Nail stuff next year.
I tell you what, do yourself a favor. Check out the new EP from David. It's called Oh Mother. It is fantastic from start to finish. You can get it wherever you get your music. Now, David, will there be any CD or vinyl releases on this?
I don't know about vinyl. We just pressed some little CD booklets. I actually didn't even know we were doing it. And at the Opry, I got a few slapped down in front of me to sign. So we may carry some of those and stuff out on the road. I feel like I really wasn't super excited about doing any of that stuff until I started thinking about, I'm still such a huge fan, but when I would go to shows and stuff, I went to a couple of shows where wasn't a bootleg because they were selling it, but where there were some options to get maybe physical copies of stuff that you couldn't get any other place or weren't available anywhere. So I think we're going to do that and maybe kind of do that continually throughout the year for people who are hardcore that have been with us from the beginning and kind of want something maybe that everybody else can't have.
Be sure to mark your calendars. February 7th, David going to be at Buffalo Run Casino. It is going to be one amazing night. We want to see you there. All the ticket info at thebull1051.com. David, man, I appreciate your time. Thanks for always being so cool when we get to hang out. And I'm really excited for what 2020 is going to bring for you. And, man, I hope your family gets to feeling better, too.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much.
I just had to say, ain't no one else to blame if I don't make it out there storm. Oh, mother.